Infamous NBA players that fell off. The NBA is a league that has an extremely limited amount of spots. If each team rosters 15 players, there is only enough room for 450 players in the entire world to play in the NBA. This process leads to there being players who push their bodies too far, or are forced to win a game. Other players cannot adjust to being a professional, and crash once they hit the NBA. Finally, others are stars that take over media headlines, only to have their flame burn out, and they fade into obscurity once again. Today, we'll be looking at the stories that cover all these topics, and infamous NBA players that fell off. Derrick Rose. The first player on this list is Derrick Rose. Rose in the 2008 NBA draft was the first overall selection to the Chicago Bulls, after a very impressive season with the Memphis Tigers. Rose grew up in Chicago, and has even been rumored that the NBA rigged the lottery for the draft this season, so the Bulls could get the hometown kid that could hopefully put them back on the map, after they were unable to retain any form of relevance since Michael Jordan had left the team. He had a great rookie season, in which he averaged 16.8 points per game, and 6.3 assists per game. Along with this, he led the Bulls to the 7th seed in the playoffs, where they faced off against the Boston Celtics. In only his third season in the league, Derrick Rose was named the MVP, which made him the youngest MVP in NBA history. Also in this season, Rose led the Bulls to the 1st seed in the Eastern Conference, against the LeBron James-led Miami Heat. This is where the potential to be an NBA legend that Rose possessed died out. With 1 minute left in a first-round playoff game against the Philadelphia 76ers, Bulls coach Tom Thibodeau decided to keep his star player in, despite having an insurmountable lead. This is a style of coaching that he is notorious for. He likes to run small rotations and play his star players for as long as he possibly can, which is awful for the day-to-day toll on their bodies, along with their overall longevity in the league. It was this decision to keep Rose in that would kill any chance of the Bulls having a star player to try to bring the team back to relevancy, as well as shutting down what could have been one of the greatest point guards of all time. Rose landed awkwardly and fell down holding his left knee. It was later found out that he had torn his ACL, which is one of the worst injuries that can occur to an NBA player. Over the next 3 seasons with the Bulls, Rose would continue to fight and struggle through countless injuries, which inhibited him from playing with the level of athleticism that won him the MVP in 2011. Rose would eventually be traded away from his hometown team, which was absolutely devastating to him. During his time with the New York Knicks, he made big promises. However, he did not quite live up to them. He did show flashes of being the same player that he was back when he was the MVP. While the Knicks did not have much team success, Rose proved himself as someone that could still play in the league. After the Knicks, he would end up on the Cleveland Cavaliers, in what had the potential on paper to be one of the greatest teams of all time. The team featured Isaiah Thomas, Derrick Rose, Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, Jay Crowder, and Kevin Love. This team would also severely underperform due to coaching, not knowing how to put the key players on the team in positions to succeed. And rather than giving Rose the ball and allowing him to make plays at the basket, he was limited to being a spot-up shooter. After only 16 games with the Cavs, Rose stepped away from the team to reevaluate his future. After about half of a season with the Cavaliers, Rose would find himself on the Minnesota Timberwolves. While on the team, there was a special game that would end up being one of the most touching moments in recent basketball history. The Timberwolves matched up against the Utah Jazz. Rose would turn back the clock and put on one of the most impressive performances of his entire career. He would finish the game with a whopping 50 points in a 128-125 victory for the Timberwolves. After the game, Rose gave a post-game interview in which he said, "I played my heart out. My teammates told me before the game, just play my game, and tonight was a hell of a night." Rose was very emotional during the interview, along with anyone else who was watching it. It showed just how far he had come after looking like his career might be over multiple times. It showed the perseverance and motivation that Rose possessed to get back to where he was, along with hard work to rehab his devastating injury and bounce back in such a strong way. Today, Rose plays for the Detroit Pistons, in which he is arguably the best player on the team, along with Blake Griffin. He is working his way back to being the player that he once was, although we will never get to see him play with the level of athleticism and speed that he did during his younger years with the Bulls. However, Rose was very close to making the All-Star game this year, and it is possible that he could very likely make at least one more before he retires from the league. Isaiah Thomas. The next player on the list is Isaiah Thomas. Thomas started his career being the last pick of the 2011 NBA draft to the Sacramento Kings. Thomas, coming into the league, signed a 3-year rookie minimum deal with the Sacramento Kings. However, they would trade him after just 3 seasons with the team, in a deal that sent him to the Phoenix Suns in return for Alex Oriaki, in a deal that with the hindsight we have now is very laughable. Thomas would only last a single season with the Suns that had quite a logjam at the point guard position during the time. While Thomas was on the roster, he was fighting for minutes with much more established players at the time, like Goran Dragic and Eric Bledsoe. After his year with the Suns, Thomas was once again traded to the Boston Celtics, where he would become one of the best players in the league for a short stretch. He took the league by storm with his incredible scoring ability and clear clutch gene, which earned him the nickname the King in the Fourth. During his time with Boston, Thomas would finish 5th in the MVP race, after averaging almost 29 points per game at a very efficient rate. During the playoffs of his MVP caliber season, he would suffer a hip injury that would derail his career. In the offseason after his injury, Boston turned their back on their leader, who played a playoff game for the team shortly after being told the news about the tragic death of his sister. He would then be traded to Cleveland, along with Jay Crowder and the pick that would become Colin Sexton, in return for Kyrie Irving. Thomas, just like Rose, suffered on the Cavaliers due to bad coaching, and being put in a system that clearly did not suit him. He would then be traded from the Cavs around the same time that Rose would be. However, he was shipped off to the Los Angeles Lakers. This is where his career would really begin to fall off, and after a season with the Denver Nuggets and a 1-year stop with the Washington Wizards, Thomas is currently unsigned and could possibly be forced in retirement just a few years after being a real MVP candidate. Jeremy Lin. The next player on the list is Jeremy Lin. Lin would begin his career in the NBA by being undrafted and clawing his way into the league. He would finally get a shot with the Golden State Warriors, where he played only 1 season, before exploding onto the scene with the New York Knicks. At the time of his signing, no one really thought it was a big signing, or a major deal for the New York Knicks. However, in the 2011-2012 season for a short stretch, Lin would be one of the most analyzed players in the entire league. An ESPN article shows just how slept on Lin was during the time. Mark Stein was quoted as saying, "Just how long the Knicks plan to keep Lin is unclear. His contract is not guaranteed, so the Knicks can waive him at any time prior to February 10th, without having to pay the remainder of his contract. If and when Gilbert returns from his injury, he will likely resume his role as one of the team's 3 point guards, leaving Lin as the odd man out." On February 4th, 2012, Lin would have his first real chance to prove himself in the NBA on a big stage. After playing just 55 minutes up to this point of the season, he would log 36 minutes in this game against the New Jersey Nets. The Knicks had lost 11 of their last 13 games, and needed a spark to try to turn their season around, and quite honestly, were desperate for anyone who could win them a game. They figured they'd give Lin starters minutes, and he did not disappoint. He finished the game with 25 points, 7 assists, and 5 rebounds, in a 99-92 victory. After the game, he was quoted as saying, "This night, it just really hasn't sunk in yet, to be honest. It's like, I'm still kind of in shock about everything that happened, but I'm just trying to soak it all in right now." Another one of Lin's notorious games during his incredible run would come against the Los Angeles Lakers. In this game, he would score 38 points against a very good Lakers team headlined by Kobe Bryant, who was still playing at an elite level. The peak of what came to be known as Linsanity came against the Toronto Raptors, where Lin racked up yet another impressive scoring night, and even hit the game winner. This would really be the last time that Lin would be in the national spotlight, and thought of as someone who had the potential to be an elite player. However, he had maintained an NBA career for quite some time after Linsanity, bouncing around the league from team to team quite often. After the Knicks, he would play with the Houston Rockets for 2 years, before playing with the Los Angeles Lakers for a single season. After his stop with the Lakers, he'd play for the Charlotte Hornets for a year, then played for the Brooklyn Nets for 2 seasons. He would then play for the Atlanta Hawks for a single season before making his final stop with the Toronto Raptors in the 2018-2019 season. This season might possibly be his last in the NBA. However, it was capped off with a championship win against the Golden State Warriors. Lin now plays professionally in the CBA for the Beijing Ducks. Gilbert Arenas. The final player on the list is Gilbert Arenas. Arenas began as a second-round pick to the Golden State Warriors. He was the most improved player in the league in the 2002-2003 season. After this season, he would sign with the Washington Wizards, where his career would skyrocket him to stardom. In just his 3rd season in the league, he would average 29.3 points per game. Arenas would continue to be one of the best scorers in the league, and would even be named one of the best scorers of this generation, along with arguably the best scorer in Washington Wizards history. He was described by Kobe Bryant in a game in which which Arenas scored 60 points as having no conscience. Washington would also be his home when his career would begin to fall off. There was the infamous incident in which Arenas was alleged of bringing in loaded guns into the Wizards' locker room and threatening a teammate. Following this incident, he faced a hefty suspension without pay for the rest of the season. Along with this, he would begin to suffer knee injuries that would keep him sidelined and take away from some of his athleticism. Final thoughts. In conclusion, the NBA is a very what can you do for me now type of league, where young players are coming in year after year hungry and trying to take the spots of people at the top. Along with injuries, off-the-court issues, and a hot streak just dying out, there are many ways in which someone can fall off in the league. However, some players find ways to bounce back and reinvent themselves, while others are never the same again. Thank you for watching another UpNext Sports video. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment naming some players that we missed, and join us next time for more basketball content similar to this.